The future belongs to those who dare, those who will do extra. Hi, I'm Mark Croskery. Welcome to Business Live Extra, the program that looks beyond dollars and cents to the movers and shakers in business and the capital markets. Today's guest has over 20 years experience in providing advisory services. His main areas of expertise are in insolvency, forensic investigations, financial sector services, crisis management, M&A, balance sheet restructuring, project financing, privatizations, public-private sector partnerships, IPOs, and project financing. He led the largest IPO in Jamaica's history and the largest bond placement for a private company in the international capital markets. He is a chartered accountant and insolvency practitioner authorized to act as a trustee under the Insolvency Act of Jamaica and Barbados. He has participated in more than 15 major receiverships and insolvency assignments in different industries across the Caribbean. Joining us today is none other than Wilfred Baghaloo, Managing Director for the Deals Practice in the South Cluster for PWC in the Caribbean. Wilfred, it's fantastic to have you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
No, a pleasure. Wilfred, you know, I've known you for probably more than 20 years, and then everybody refers to you as Bagga. Is it as simple as just an abbreviation of your surname, or is there some longer story there?
Well, it's an abbreviation. I've been called many, many names. Bagga, Willie, Wilfred, Fred, but my pet name is Bagga.
Okay, all right.
And I'm quite comfortable being called Bagga, irrespective of the circumstances I'm in.
Okay, and you know, with how successful you've been and your whole career and what you've built up into, do you have a lot of nicknames?
Yes, back in the 1990s, I was known as the Undertaker when insolvencies were rampant after the financial sector crisis meltdown. But otherwise than that, I'm just known as Bagga.
A Bagga, okay. And you know, it's interesting you mentioned that. Take us back there. You are a KC old boy. You went to Kingston College, and although of course, you know, especially in my generation, you know, Campion has really, you know, shined, and a lot of persons in the corporate sector or in the business world are known for going to Campion. The reality is KC actually, you know, KC has really done well as well, and there is quite a alumni or kind of a KC old boys club, or you know, alumni overall that seems to be shining and doing well also, and you're a testament to that. You know, you went to KC, you know, what was it like? I mean, what did you get from KC, and is there like a hub, or you know, are there a lot of guys you're still in touch with? Yes,
well, I actually went to Kingston College for 5 years, and then I went to Calabar. I think I'm very unique in that regard for a couple of months.
Okay. Was that a good thing or a bad thing?
It was a good thing.
With the pivot to Calabar?
It was a good thing. I developed a lot of friendship from Calabar, and I still have a lot of friendship from Kingston College. Kingston College is a school, a downtown school, and probably have been the most successful school in Kingston, not necessarily Kingston and St. Andrew, but in Kingston in the country. Its achievements in every facet of life is well known and well established, whether it's sports or education or business.
And were you big into athletics or sports or anything, or were you predominantly focused on the academia side?
Quite frankly, I was not good at none. Until sports, definitely not.
So you didn't pivot to Calabar for the sports?
No, I did not.
Okay.
No, I did not.
All right. And what else? I mean, have you done business with a lot of, let's say, KC old boys? I mean, have you kept in touch? I mean, is there a strong alumni feeling there, you know, whether it's in the business sector or just the social sector?
Admittedly, I've not been very active as I would like, in the Old Boys Association. I was maybe 10 years ago, then I got very active in my personal business life, so I have not focused. But I would say I still play my part in the roles that I can play, given the limitation of time. So I'm not very deep into the association and the old boys, but I play my part.
Your part. And flashing a bit forward, you then went on to, you know, let's say college, university, you went to UTech.
Yes, I went to UTech.
And when you're at UTech, what did you study during those, you know, pivotal years?
Well, in my initial days, I thought I was going to be a chemical engineer. Okay. And that was my intent. I think I was really good at chemistry in school. And then when I realized the time period it would take to become a proficient in chemical engineering, I switched to business. And I would say accidentally I ended up at PricewaterhouseCoopers on a summer job. And then after a period of time, a couple of years, I was encouraged by the partnership then to consider some permanency in the field of accounting.
And when you did the summer job or like an internship at PWC, were you specifically in, I don't know, in tax or in audit, or what part of PWC did you get thrown into during the summer job?
It was really in audit and administration. And then I ended up in insolvency.
Did you actually get thrown into like a field assignment, or get to go out to maybe a potential client, or were you at the head office?
No, we were sent on the road, particularly for stock counts, year-end stock counts, and particularly for stock counts that persons didn't want to go to, particularly the more experienced staff. So we were given the as you would expect in any company as a newbie.
Yeah, and you know, I'm a big believer in that. You know, summer jobs, especially if you get the opportunity to do a summer job. So is that where the whole passion and your energy came in, Wilfred, in terms of, you know, jumping into, let's say, being a lifer at PwC, or the passion from moving from chemical engineering into this whole, you know, advisory side, or the passion for the business side came in that summer specifically?
No, quite frankly, it took me about maybe 5 years, 6 years before I decided what my career should be.
Okay.
Before I decided I wanted to be an accountant. I had very little interest in the first few years in being an accountant. When you join PricewaterhouseCoopers, you have to do professional exams. And more so these days, it was the same principle back when I joined, but a lot more these days. And it took me a couple of years to decide what I wanted to do. And I certainly was not interested in accounting at the time, although I was working at PricewaterhouseCoopers.
And so how did you make that jump now? So summer job, you know, okay, chemical engineer, not for you. You finished UTech. How did you make that kind of critical step to become, you know, at PwC and become a chartered accountant? Well,
I had a partner at the time, Richard Downer, and a senior manager, a director at the time, Kathy Moss. And it was Mrs. Moss who said to me, why don't you consider permanent at PricewaterhouseCoopers? It wasn't called PricewaterhouseCoopers at the time. It was called Pricewaterhouse. After the mergers with Coopers and Lybrand, it became PricewaterhouseCoopers. PWC, the acronym. And so it was arising from that. And then the partners were also asking why I'm not doing exams. And, you know, what am I going to do with my life? And so eventually I decided to start doing exams, and went very well the first couple of years.
Could you work at PwC, or let's say Pricewaterhouse in those days, if you were not a chartered accountant, or if you were not on the path to taking exams? I mean, or to work at, let's say, Pricewaterhouse, you had to be, you know, a chartered accountant or sitting exams?
Well, first of all, PricewaterhouseCoopers provide a wide range of services, professional services, albeit more financial oriented, including digitization. So you're encouraged to do professional exams, whether it's a chartered accountancy exam, whether it's a CFA exam, or whether it's business valuation exams. You're encouraged to do professional exams because we are a company, a firm that provides a full suite of professional services.
So you don't have to be let's say, a CCA?
No, you don't have to.
Okay.
But in those days, it was more slanted to ACCA.
Yes.
In today's world, it's much more slanted to professional exams, which we have a very wide suite of professional exams that you can choose from.
So kind of in a way, if you weren't at ACCA, or if you weren't sitting the exams, you'd kind of be frowned upon, especially in those days.
Yes, and you will be denied promotions, and you'll be encouraged to seek career elsewhere.
Okay, that's a nice way to put it. I like that. Yeah. So in your early years at PwC, I mean, what were you doing? I mean, what was there any sector focus, or what were your formative years like at PwC? Because it's a bit unique, Wilfred, in the sense, you know, a lot of persons we've spoken to, you know, might have a first job in this sector, that sector, but you have really been a lifer at PwC, to say.
Yes, Pricewaterhouse has been my first job, and at the rate I'm going, it looked like my last job as an employee. And
it speaks to your loyalty.
Yes, speak to loyalty, but also speak to the fact that I did like what I was doing. After about 7 or 8 years, I enjoyed very much of it, and I have enjoyed it and continue to enjoy it, and hence the reason why I'm still with PricewaterhouseCoopers. And you know, it's a small practice relative to some of our colleagues in the bigger markets, so you get a wide cross section of experience.
Yeah, and so in that first kind of 5-10 years, you know, versus where you are today, you know, let's say managing director, deals, you know, kind of the southern market, the southern cluster, which is a big scope, for the Caribbean, not just Jamaica, but your PWC Jamaica. In those early years where you're running out to assignments, I mean, after you graduated from, say, stock taking, inventory accounting, what were you doing in that kind of first 10 years at Pricewaterhouse?
Well, we started a lot of insolvencies. Jamaica financial sector collapse in the 1990s. Start manifesting itself maybe around 1994.
Yeah.
We talk about 1996, but it really started.
So, and that was kind of your first 10-year window, like
yes.
Right there. You're smack in the middle of that.
Yes, because I joined Pricewaterhouse around, for all practical reasons, around 1991. And then you start having the collapse of the Anderson Groups, Chem Products,
Wow.
Caribbean Casting. I think that was in the 1990s. And so a lot of companies start collapsing in different sectors, the interest rates, the movement in interest rates, and uncertainty in the foreign currency market at the time, amongst other things. But those were the primary reasons.
We're gonna come right back to that, Wilfred. Some companies and knowledge you have, some companies we've never even heard of before. We like that on Business Dive Extra. We're gonna come back to that.
Sure.
We take our first break on Business Dive Extra. More when we return. Welcome back to Business Dive Extra. PWC is Jamaica's leading professional services firm delivering quality in assurance, advisory, and tax services. PWC's firm in Jamaica started in 1916 with offices in 156 countries and more than 295,000 people. PWC is among the leading professional services networks in the world. PWC Jamaica has a team of over 350 professionals, including 14 partners located in 2 offices in Kingston and Montego Bay. The firm's primary strategic goal is to create value for its clients through innovation, integrity, and commitment to excellence. They advise more companies listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, the JSE, than any other professional services firm in Jamaica. Here with us is Wilfred Baghaloo, Managing Director for Deals at PWC. Wilfred, welcome back to Business Dive Extra. It's great having you.
Thanks for having me.
That type of network, I mean, it's huge. Other financial advisory firms, consulting firms just don't have that access. Is it really as big as PwC says it is globally? And do you have that benefit and that access from Jamaica, like to all this professional network? If you're doing let's say a deal in a totally different sector, you can pull on these guys?
You'll be surprised how connected we are. We can pull from any sector, from any country, the resource that we want. And we do. And we do so for the benefit of our local clients. So a lot of our proposals, we pull from India, Australia, England, Canada, Latin America when it's required. Depends on the size of the country. So we're a global network, and we're connected today more than ever before because of virtual communications that we have now.
And is it so this global network, especially in today's age, is it almost like you have your own, call it mini Instagram or Facebook, that just connects all these professionals all over the world so that you can jump on and type a question? Or
Absolutely. We have so many different internal communication tools amongst ourselves.
Really?
I myself get confused sometimes. But we do have a lot. And of course, we use the traditional tools as well.
Yeah.
The WhatsApp and etc. But we have our own communication tools, for our own internal purposes and risk controls.
Does it get to the point, Wilfred, where you're finding there's even potential like revenue referrals or client referrals happening? Like, as you mentioned, if there's an office in India and they have a client who's looking to invest in Jamaica, I mean, there's opportunities like that start to happen within that network?
Yes, I mean, opportunities come inwards and opportunity goes outwards. By that, someone may have a client coming from one of the capital markets that want to invest in Jamaica or the Caribbean. They come to us. But we may have assets that we want to sell to the capital market on behalf of government, on behalf of private sector, and we go outward to our international network. We have bid, the Jamaican office have bid in projects in sugar in Ethiopia, tourism in Kenya, and so we do both. The workflow both directions. Yeah,
and it's phenomenal to be associated with a big brand. I've seen it all throughout life. Especially like just huge brands. With Cinco, NCB, Scotia, but you can name them. Branding does work, and having that credibility. How do you refer to yourself Do people refer to you as a consultant, a financial advisor, or do you just say managing director? I mean, are you a fixer? I mean, how do you refer to, let's say, Wilfred Baghaloo or PWC?
Well, the market gets a little bit confused as to what a consultant is versus what an advisor is, and people consider me a consultant. Technically, that's not correct. The advisory unit has three components to it. It has a taxation. Everyone knows about taxes. It has a consultancy that deals with HR and policies and digitization, which is a big, big agenda item now. And you have deals. I deal with mergers, acquisitions, public-private partnership, privatizations, crisis management. I spent 8 years of my life in the sugar industry. One of my best period of my life. Not the most financially rewarding, but emotionally the best period of my life. We spent a lot of time in the BPO sector when it collapsed in the late 1990s, early 2000, NetServe, teleservices, pathways. So in deals, we do transactions. We are transaction-oriented.
So deals is transactions, but under advisory, you have different buckets.
Yes, you have three buckets, primarily.
And so what you're saying, which is definitely there's confusion out there, I would say, in the marketplace, but not necessarily for PwC, but just overall. So consulting and advisory are different.
No, consulting is a subset of advisory.
A subset of advisory.
Yes. So subset of advisory is consultancy, tax, and deals.
Got you. And like assurance and these things now is something that's different though.
Yeah, assurance is primarily our, in this market, is primarily our biggest revenue earner and the biggest employer, what you call audits. But in bigger markets, it's changing to the advisory, transaction, consultancy side of the business.
And assurance means, I mean, not to simplify it, but like, reconciliations and verifications, but what does assurance really mean?
It really means giving some level of comfort on financial statements.
Okay.
It's not absolute, as a lot of people think, but it's a level of comfort. It's reasonably and fairly accurate assurance on something that was produced by management.
And is it more like due diligence when you're doing a takeover for a client, or can it just be, as you said, a board of directors wants to get clarity to make sure that this is accurate for the year, so they do an assurance test on it, or how does assurance really work?
Well, I'm not necessarily in audit practice, but audits are really required statutory, are required by a board of directors for different reasons. And so it's really, the management provides a set of accounts, and the auditors provide some opinion on it. There's some testing on it, various forms of test. Reconciliation is the one part of it, but probably a very small component of it. And provide an opinion, qualified or unqualified opinion, as to the accuracy, or the degree of accuracy of the financial statements.
And when you look at PwC, and just like, let's say, the revenue concentration, and if you can say, do you find that, let's say, government or public sector, or is it maybe financial services, private sector, whether you say the deal standpoint or overall, where do you find the majority of your coverage is coming in from, or revenue? Well,
from the perspective of the firm, will primarily be from the audit perspective in small countries like ours.
So audit is still the number one.
Number one in our smaller markets. In the bigger market, it's changing rapidly.
Okay. What's happening in the bigger markets on a global scale?
Digitization, consultancy, a lot more transactions, a lot more privatization. PPPs, a big item in bigger markets. Government need infrastructure, and the best way to implement infrastructure without impacting the recurring budget is through public-private partnership, and that takes a lot of creativity and a lot of nuances to manage. So the risk and rewards are fairly balanced. So between private sector and public sector in Jamaica, public sector meaning government, private sector would be the chunk of our revenue.
And why, on that point, for the the PPPs or the whole public-private sector? I mean, we've seen some successful, and you PwC have been an advisor on probably the bulk of them or some of them. Why are we seeing more in Jamaica? Is it maybe some that we think or the market might think should be done or should be divested? There's maybe no necessarily investor interest for those, or why don't we see more PPPs come to the market?
I think as government reduces its appetite for borrowing, you will see a lot more, which Trans-Jamaica is an example. Would have been the largest IPO in Jamaica's history, $100 million listed. The public oversubscribed for it. As liquidity has been a challenge over the years, and treasury managers that believe in financial institutions have chosen a particular vehicle to invest in, which is government securities, because by many benchmark is considered more secured. And I think the creativity for PPPs was not there, but I think it's creating, is evolving. It's evolving. And we see it in many, many areas. You saw it in Trans-Jamaica Highway. You see many of the firms that are coming up, and the new investment firms that are coming up now are entering that space. And you see a lot of real estate development happening. Some of those are PPPs.
And a PPP, so you mentioned Trans-Jamaica. Would a Wigton classify as one?
Yes.
A Wigton. And what are some of the successful ones you would say, or are those just kind of the two?
No, you have the Port Authority of Jamaica, Kingston Container Terminal. You have the East-West Highway, which is what we know as the highway from Portmore to Maypen. We have the North-South, which is from Mandela Highway to Ocho-Rios. Those are some of the more prominent ones. Of course, you have Wigton that you're speaking about. I think GPS is coming out into the market at some point in time.
Right. So it can be something that would have been maybe privately divested to a foreign direct investor, or I mean that does classify as a PPP.
Yes, it doesn't matter who the investors are.
It doesn't have to be an IPO, or it doesn't have to go on the stock market.
No,
or
it
be
doesn't
like
have
a
to.
bond raise or something like that.
No, it doesn't have to.
Okay.
I mean, in many countries, PPPs dominates the health sector, dominate the prison sector, dominates some public spaces like schools, certainly dominates stadiums. A lot of the stadiums they build them being operated in the United Kingdom or Europe are PPPs.
And do you think we'll see more in those kind of creative assets you just mentioned, or will it just be really strictly like infrastructure and energy, which are like kind of the big plays now? Seems to be kind of the talk of the town. Everybody is looking at those two kind of asset classes.
I hope at some point between the local government and central government, they will start thinking how best to monetize their assets. The local government have significant assets that need to think how to monetize it, as they do in any other local government in any part of the world. In some part of the world, local government bonds are more pricier, meaning better yield than central government. Argentina, many parts of Europe, you see that. So there are a lot of assets there still to be privatized and to be entered into PPP arrangements. As I said, prisons, hospitals,
so
just to name a few.
Those are some that we could see.
Yeah. I hope.
Right.
I hope.
We're going to talk more about that. We take another break on Business Live Extra. More when we return with Wilfred Baghaloo, Managing Director for Deals at PWC. Welcome back to Business Live Extra. PWC Jamaica provides a wide range of services that contributes to the major significant sectors of the Jamaican economy. PWC's client base includes firms engaged in financial services, insurance, manufacturing, retail and distribution, tourism, mining, and agriculture. For several years, PWC Jamaica has positioned itself in providing consulting and financial advisory services. This has led to PWC winning and executing major transactions, such as being an advisor for Wysinco's IPO on the main market of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Regionally, PWC in the Caribbean firms include Jamaica, the Bahamas, Bermuda, Cayman Islands, BVI, Trinidad and Tobago, the Eastern Caribbean, and Guyana. Still with us is Managing Director for Deals at PWC, Wilfred Baghaloo. Wilfred, welcome back to Business Live Extra.
Thank you again.
So when you talk about Managing Director Deals and the whole Southern Caribbean, or let's say South Cluster, it goes as far as, let's say, Guyana, Eastern Caribbean, but you're also doing a bit of the Northern Caribbean, Bahamas and Cayman?
Bahamas is considered part of the Southern Caribbean.
It is, okay.
Bermuda and Cayman and the BVI is not.
Okay.
So I don't have responsibility for the deals department unit component of PricewaterhouseCoopers for those islands. But Bahamas, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, Jamaica, and Guyana.
Okay. And does it depend on the country size in each of these countries? Like, would each one almost have like a investment banker or like a manager of, call it, deals or structuring, and then they report into you?
Yeah, report is a kind of strong language because they are partners. So we have partners in each of those countries. We have a partner for deals in Bahamas. We have partners for deals in Barbados And Guyana is just recently new territory. We haven't really fully finalized that, but we do have a Guyanese partner in Guyana.
Okay.
And in Trinidad and Tobago, we have 2 or 3 partners. But report is a strong line. I kind of coordinate more than report.
Coordinate. And are you seeing, with all that's happening in Guyana with energy, oil, etc., I mean, are you seeing the boom coming out of Guyana, or does it still need a couple more years?
I think the platform is being set for a boom. And there's no doubt about that. And there's no doubt that we as Jamaica and others should just try to find the opportunities there. I go there once a month.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes. So I believe a platform is set for a boom. The World Bank and the IMF has predicted that within 3 years, Guyana GDP will be 55,000 US per capita.
Okay.
That would be very, very high, maybe in the top 5 countries in the world.
Yeah. Similar to Guyana, do you have to physically visit each of these jurisdictions, say once a month or once every 2 months, or are you doing a lot of it, let's say through Knowledge Share, Zoom, Teams, Google Meet? A
combination of all of those. Combination of technology, the Zoom, the Teams, whatever the technology platform that clients use. But in our business, particularly this business, face-to-face interaction is extremely important. It's required. And our clients like to feel and hear us and see us. And transaction clients are like that.
Yeah.
They want to see you and feel you and hear what you have to say and judge your eyes and judge your hands. So we have to travel a bit, unlike some of the other areas of Pricewaterhouse.
Would you say 50% or more, if you had to give it a percentage? I mean, it is relationship-based, like what you just said, face-to-face. I mean, is it significantly relationship-based business?
Yeah, the thing about relationship is it's hard to define why someone, but certainly what is critically important is trust and innovation. And people want to trust you, want to feel that you're adding value, and that you're innovative to solve their complex problem.
Yeah. And is there any particular, let's say, part of the cluster overall, that PWC is bullish on? When you look at Eastern Caribbean, let's say Guyana, kind of the Cayman, Bahamas, Belt, is there any part you're very bullish on? Even, let's say, Jamaica. I mean, but is there any, particular area that you'd say, boy, over the next, year to 3 years, huge upside there?
Well, all the Caribbean islands we are bullish on. Some we have more emphasis on because they're new investment like Guyana. But we're still bullish in every single market we are in. And although we have a mature presence in those markets, that doesn't stop us from being bullish.
I guess being more pointed. I mean, just like the West Indies cricket team. I mean, maybe there might be some better players coming out of ABC country, this year, next year, or whatever it is. I mean, from your personal perspective and PwC, any winners, let's say winning countries, winning islands that you really think, the economies are going to be outperforming? Well, we hope Guyana, we hope, since the new market we've invested in is Guyana, we hope that will show the necessary returns. We still are very bullish about Jamaica and Trinidad and Barbados and Bahamas. Besides Jamaica, where's the largest office, or let's say PwC partnership in the Caribbean? Trinidad will be the second largest. Trinidad. And after Trinidad, where do you kind of drop to? Barbados, Bahamas, and obviously Guyana. No, I'm only speaking about the Southern Caribbean. Right, yes, of course. And do you find it, but it's a strong chemistry between all of those different offices, Bahamas, Trinidad, Barbados? And yes, within context. I mean, it's different partnership, different culture, but I would say it's fantastic chemistry within that context. Okay, good. And are you seeing PPPs happening in those countries as well, as aggressive as we've seen them in Jamaica? No, I think Jamaica was pushed more on PPPs because of our budgetary challenges over the years. And so we became a lot more creative, particularly with the highways, as an example, and KCT. I think the other countries, particularly Trinidad, I think Trinidad would have to see some PPPs as they go forward, and maybe an aggressive privatization in the future, if the trajectory continues for Trinidad as is. Right. And based on where you're at now, Wilfred, you'd say PwC is the leader in the Caribbean and the region? Yes, of course I would say that. In terms of deals, advisor services? Oh yes, definitely. Okay. We are a trusted advisors that solve complex problems. And we have been like that for a long time. We continue to be that, and our clients trust us. Yeah. And you mentioned digitization. Are you seeing, governments throughout the Caribbean also adopt digitization as quickly as you'd like them to, or is it legislation and other potential issues that prevent that?
Well, it's not really my area of expertise. I mean, it's really led by another partner. But my observation is that governments are moving very, very slowly, as we tend to do in the Caribbean. And digitization, I think, would help the delivery of service in every facet of life to the people of Jamaica. And I hope the Caribbean government will get on board fairly quickly for the benefit. And I think it'd be an important linchpin for driving economy.
And so if digitization is almost a separate, call it segment or department, if there's so much investment in that at PWC, persons will look at digitization as just going into an office, converting these huge filing cabinets of paper into a system and so forth. And there's lots of companies out there who do that. But how do you look at digitization, or PwC look at it?
Well, the first thing I would like to do is make sure you will invite my partner who has responsibility for digitization to speak in this matter. He's a lot more competent than I am. But the anecdotal information I have is a lot more than just converting paper into the digital form. It's a beginning and it's a necessary platform.
But what you're saying is PwC has looked at this as being such a, let's say, value-added revenue stream, but plus an important part of what companies are going through, or governments, that they've invested into it, not only at a, let's say, a partnership level, but a whole department.
Yes, we have. It's one of our big bets.
In Jamaica?
In Jamaica and the Caribbean.
Really?
It's one of our big bets for the medium to short-term period.
And so like stuff like NIDS, stuff like this could all contribute to that?
Yes, I think so. And I certainly would hope you take my offer to have our partner to join you and discuss digitization, because I think it's a very important topic. Very important topic for the people of Jamaica and for governments, and for us to understand how we can change our lives, make our lives simpler, make us more productive, make our economy grow faster.
Versus just talking about, say, cybersecurity or data privacy and stuff like that. But I guess, I know.
And those things are important.
On the positive side.
Those things are important. They're not mutually exclusive. But digitization, we have to improve how we deliver services at the private sector level and at the public sector level.
Got it.
And I think digitization is a big chunk of that.
Right. And so when you look at the outlook overall, Wilfred, and let's say PwC, besides the core, as you mentioned, tax, audit, assurance, etc., digitization you have right up there. The Caribbean platform, regional activities, centralization. Any other kind of growth prospects or things that PwC is focusing on for going forward besides digitization?
We're focusing, well, we're just going to launch our forensic practice in the Southern Caribbean. And forensic involve a lot more than the negative connotations of forensic. So we're about to launch that.
Is that, and again, so many words can be misconstrued, forensic and assurance different, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Assurance is really a kind of attestation.
Okay.
Attestation meaning, someone gives you some account, so you check it and make sure that the account was produced properly as best as you can, obviously. Nothing is absolute.
So forensic is something like the board of directors feel something genuinely went wrong and we need it to be investigated.
As one example, or the board of directors may feel that we need to tighten our controls in our environment to make sure something don't go wrong, or if something goes wrong, how do we correct it?
And is this due to, let's say, the pandemic, or is this from pre-pandemic that you've seen demand for that type of service line, out there in Jamaica and the region?
No, forensic always a service that existed in the global network. It's just something that we are putting out now in the Caribbean, and we are investing and reinventing ourselves to offer a wider range of services to our clients, as is happening in the international market.
Specially trained staff, global certifications?
Technology.
Okay.
Investment in heavy technology. So equipment that are required for it.
Okay, so it's like some IT specialists mixed with accounting specialists.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So that's the
we should recruit you. So that we should recruit you for a forensic.
That's a value-added proposition now.
Yes.
That PwC offers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and we're rolling out that PwC globally offer, but we are now rolling it out in the Southern Caribbean. We offer it, but not with the intensity and depth that we intend to go, starting around March.
Gotcha. And this is where there's a crossover. In other words, your global staff can come to Jamaica, train your local staff, and vice versa.
And vice versa. Because some assignments may be very sensitive, particularly in the forensic area, and we may want to use our global staff to ensure, we live in small islands.
Yeah.
Clients may worry about privacy and, cousins and, the relationships that happens in small islands. Yes. So sometimes we'll have to use global staff, and vice versa. Sometimes our global staff will have to use us, or our global team will have to use us when they have sensitive situations. that may require remote skilled staff from remote locations.
Well said, Wilfred, and a new topic. We're going to come back to that. We take another break on Business Live Extra. More when we return. Welcome back to Business Live Extra. On the matter of insolvency and the company's expertise, PWC was recently announced as being in charge as a receiver for the landmark tourism attraction in Ocho Rios, Mystic Mountain Jamaica Adventure Park Rainforest Adventures. Recently, they completed a successful transition of Morgan's Harbour Hotel and Jamaica Beverages Limited, manufacturer of Juiciful brands. We'll now find out about the Office of the Supervisor Insolvency, OSI process, and PwC's long-standing being a leading market player in the receivership process in Jamaica. Joining us for our final time is Wilfred Baghaloo, Managing Director for Deals at PwC. Wilfred, welcome back.
Thank you again.
You know, that name, The Undertaker. I mean, the only time I've heard that name before is like in wrestling in the US and stuff like that, or the WWF, you know. So you got that name. You've done over 15 big receivership deals or something like that in the Caribbean, not just Jamaica. I think Jamaica and Barbados, you know, you mentioned.
Cayman.
Okay, Cayman as well. And yeah, it seems like anytime there's a, you know, a big deal, Holyfield, anything like that,
Yes.
and receivership, I mean, you know, PwC, you know, you guys are the guy. You know, how did you build this out? And, you know, you mentioned a name earlier, like a mentor of yours, Richard Downer. You know, I know he was known for it as well. So it's something that's been really embedded in PwC?
Yes, I mean, we have certainly since I've been there, since 1991, we have been dominating the insolvency space. Insolvency involved many areas. Receiverships, liquidation, voluntary, involuntary, temporary management, which Central National was an example, which we involved in. Richard Downer and myself did that. I spent a lot of time on that one. That one I could write a book on. Okay. So it involved many different activities. In 2014, the government, I think at that time, Anthony Hilton was minister, introduced the Insolvency Act. Which
and that's what I wanted to ask you. So we do, in fact, have an act in Jamaica?
Yes. We have the old Companies Act in 1968 that was revamped in 2004 that addressed some of the challenges we have in the 1990s. But with the 2014 Act, is a very modern piece of legislation. It's really a hybrid of legislation from Australia, Canada, and a bit of Jamaican touch to it.
And the proper phrase, or call it wording, is?
The Insolvency, Bankruptcy Insolvency Act.
Okay, so in Jamaica we have that, whether you're a big company or let's say you're an MSME or SME, you can actually utilize that?
Or individuals. So the Act is structured to address all persons. And in the Act, a person is defined as a company, individual, etc.
And is it as popular now, let's say, as, I don't know, Chapter 11 or whatever that chapter is called in the US? Or is it kind of still frowned upon in Jamaica, like it's going to impact your credit for life? Or is it still like, as I said, it's only 8 years old, so it's still a young act as compared to some of our other acts from the 40s and the 60s.
Yes.
But is it frowned upon?
It is frowned upon, and maybe the terminology and the wording of it was you know, the bankruptcy. In Jamaica, we see failure as something is wrong with it. Failure is just a path of growing.
Yes.
You can't grow unless you fail.
Right.
And companies are like that. And you know, the best portfolio managers in the world or asset managers have assets in their group that fail. We don't have to call their names, but you know some of the biggest portfolio managers in the world. We have looked at failure, and when companies fail, we ascribe motives to it. Sometimes companies fail for several reasons. They didn't fail because of corruption, they failed because of market circumstances, inadequate financing, change in technology, change in markets, family challenges, shareholders dispute. So there are many reasons why companies fail. And unfortunately, we have labeled failure as something that is bad rather than something that could be good and a base for learning to go forward.
Not something along the journey of entrepreneurship or business growth.
I think you're absolutely right, yes.
So do you view, Wilfred, that act, you know, as something that is was designed to be a part of that process, to start to, you know, maybe change that, whether it's a culture or, you know, thought process?
Yes, I think so. I was invited to the committee, the parliamentary committee, to make my presentation, and I'm very thankful for the persons who invited me at the time. And we made a lot of presentations. We, from PricewaterhouseCoopers, myself and my several other team members. And the primary objective was to share our experience and to make sure starting a business is a very challenging thing, whether it's a business of one person, two persons, or 100 persons.
Right.
And so we have to find mechanism to make sure we can protect them where they deserve protection. Not in all instances they deserve protection.
Yes.
But where they deserve protections, we must find the mechanism. And I think the 2014 Act gives that. Like all other acts or piece of legislation, it has some gaps, and we're seeing that. And we will continue, hopefully, the OSI, the Office of Supervisory of Insolvency, will continue to lobby the policymakers to make some changes, which they have been doing a fantastic job, I think, in doing so. And I believe a new set of changes are going to the Parliament this year.
And of course, I assume that it's very private, but are there statistics, or do they make like public statistics annually of how many, like, number of individuals or number of companies filed or took up this act, or that's all private information?
It's there if someone wants to collate it, but I'm not sure if the OSI office actually does so. But no, fact that you have said it, thank you. You've given an idea. I should share with them.
Okay. No, interesting. So this is something that it's enacted, and it has been happening annually. Yeah. It
has been, and I know individuals. We don't practice. My firm don't practice. Well, it's an individual have to be appointed as a receiver, a liquidator, a temporary manager. It's not a firm.
Yes.
But I do so in the capacity as a partner, or a director of PricewaterhouseCoopers.
No. Pricewaterhouse has, or PWC, you've gotten some big names. Mystic Mountain was in the media recently, newspaper. Mentioned the same name, OSI, different details, but as you mentioned, Juiciful Brands, you've had some big names over the year. I recall even, as you mentioned, in the Richard Downer names like Thermoplastics, I think it's now Omni, but some big names over the past, few decades. And what do you attribute that to? Is it the independence of PwC, again, the brand, or, you just do a great job overall?
I hope it's independence, and I hope it's the fact that we do provide solutions, and we do so in a very challenging, and receivership is really a crisis management. You're asked one night to go into a company the following morning, you have to make a judgment call. Do you shut the company down? Do you continue operating the company? I, as a receiver, carry the personal liability, of course, in conjunction with the firm that I'm with.
Wilfred, how hands-on and fast-paced is it?
Very hands-on and very fast-paced.
So it actually is like doing a deal, like an IPO or something, or is it even more fast-paced because you have to be?
It has to be more fast-paced and a lot more risk attached to it, and a lot more management of details are required.
Do you almost feel like a psychologist because you're getting a lot of like crisis calls and emotional calls? Yes,
we've had some stressful situations with owners, and it's hard for people, to build their company. Took a lot of innovation, took a lot of sleepless night, and then this receiver comes in and is there on behalf of the secured creditors mainly. But under the Act now, you have creditors protection before you get a receiver. The receiver is really appointed invariably by a secured creditor, somebody who has a debenture agreement and has certain clauses about receiver and manager, receiver and manager. But companies today, after 2014, can protect themselves much more. They're not really protecting themselves from a hostile creditors, but protect themselves. They need breathing space. They need to restructure their business. They maybe need to restructure the debt arrangement with their company, with their lenders.
And it's for a time period, though, like a limited time period.
Yes,
it's not
meant,
inevitable.
No, it's not meant to be forever. It's really meant for increments. I think the first increment is 6 months.
Okay.
And then you can apply for increments thereafter.
So it's well done. It's well structured.
It is well structured. There's some loopholes here and there, but all acts have that challenges.
Okay. No, Wilfred, it's not often we get someone independent like you on the show, and we really like it. How do you feel about Jamaica's growth now? All of what's happening, inflation pressures globally, but PIOJ put out some nice growth results, but we have inflation pressures. Interest rates just went up. I guess announcement, recently, I guess effective February 21st, 4%. But how do you feel about all these things happening, where Jamaica is, the growth is, impacts your clients and you? How you feel about it now?
Oh, you bowled me a bouncer there, Mark.
Well,
I'm really an accountant.
Pretend you're a minister of finance for the day.
I'm not really an economist. But the jump in the interest rate, I think, is, if it is correct, what I've seen, 1.5%, 150 basis points, is a big jump. I don't know all the reasons why. And I'm sure there are good reasons why. That is for the Bank of Jamaica and the Minister of Finance to explain to the public why. It certainly will create some challenges. But hopefully those challenges are short-term challenges. So I prefer for the Minister and the Bank of Jamaica to speak about it. I think Jamaica in general is in a good path. Born in Jamaica, lived in Jamaica, came from Spanish Town, came to Kingston. So I've lived all my life here. And I think Jamaica is one of the better paths I've seen in a long while. Are there many areas that could be improved? Well, yes. Our expenditure on infrastructure still remains fairly low, still around 5%, maybe 6% this year. I think the highest we've had in decades would have been maybe 10%, 10 to 12%, maybe 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. That's the highest we've had in decades as a percent of GDP. I've never done the calculation what was done with COVID as a result of COVID because of the hospitals and stuff, so I don't know if my 10 to 12% is exactly correct. But certainly there are areas that we can improve. Infrastructure is one of them I think we have to improve if we're going to grow the economy. As they say in other countries.
Infrastructure.
As they say in other countries.
Just roadworks or more than just roadworks?
Roads, police stations, hospitals, schools. Many of our schools I think needs to be redesigned, including my old school, to fit what's required in the modern era, to drive education in a different way, particularly as required in the digital age. So I think a lot more needs to be done there. But I think in general, we're in a path. If you can drop the debt ratio from 100, some person says 145. I recall, depends on how you had, which public sector debt stock you put in.
Yes.
It could be as high as 150, 155. And to drop that, to drop that to 97%, I think that's gone back to maybe 103 now because of COVID. It's a significant achievement. I still think.
And we've seen the economic room and the breathing room and the benefits. Yeah.
Yes, we're seeing it, and we're seeing the liquidity, and you're seeing it in the growth in the new firms and the new business leaders and the new entrepreneurs that are coming in Jamaica. It's a quite exciting period, I think, when you look at some of the age of the new group of entrepreneurs.
Well said.
It's really encouraging. Are they going to make mistakes? Well, it's a part of life, they will. But we're here to help.
And that's why they have Wilfred
Thank you so
Baghaloo, Bago.
Exactly.
And PWC deals, right?
That's correct.
I like it. Wilfred, thank you so much for coming on Business Live Extra.
Thank you very much, Mark.
And getting your perspective.
Thank you very much for spending an hour with me.
No one.
Much appreciated.
Fantastic.
Bye-bye.
That's it for another edition of Business Live Extra. Remember, the most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity. We've been talking with Wilfred Baghaloo, Managing Director for the Deals Practice in the Southern Cluster for PWC in the Caribbean. Don't forget, you can catch us online at cvm.com/videos/Business Live Extra. Thanks for joining us.